what happened to all those successful businesses and things that were around during Jim Crow? They were destroyed, bro. They were destroyed, cousin. Our government or white racists, but that happened. You can't even lie. That's history, brother. That's history.
That is history.
Again, choice and accountability.
So Myron is arguing here.
Okay, he lost me there. He lost me there. What do you mean choice in the comment? Black guy finally gives Myron what he deserves. We got a video from O'Shea Duke Jackson, and we're going to figure out what he has to say in regards to what has happened very, very recently. Now, before we even get into the video, I just want to preface that when it comes to the whole red pill topic and conversation, I love the mindset aspect of it, but in regards to how the space is right now and how it's literally just gone from it being a motivational thing of self-improvement into now just specifically, you know, looking for clickbait things and bashing ladies and this and that. It's kind of like, I already know, I don't want to really be a part of that, but I'll still tune into one or two red pill pieces of content when it comes to the mindset, getting some money, getting your physique right, etc. So just to preface it when I say one or two things, let's have this. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video.
He went viral for his in-person debates, whether that was on, pre-recorded shows or on college campuses. He did pretty well with these ideas. But there was one major criticism of Mr. Charlie Kirk, is that his debates were one-sided. He wasn't trying to really change his position on anything, and he would completely dismiss your arguments, even if they had factual basis to them. Instead, Charlie Kirk operated like this.
To me, a bad faith argument is an argument with someone who is unwilling or unable to articulate what would convince them to change their mind. If you're having a discussion with someone and they can't articulate what's the reason or what's the evidence or whatever that's going to change their mind, there's no conversation to be had, in my opinion, because you're stuck in your ways.
Which is very, very true. And to be honest, that's the reason why I don't debate with a lot of people. To be honest, debates aren't debates anymore. In reality, it's just two people just shouting at each other and just trying to get the other side to literally understand why the other person is right, when in reality, both people could be wrong in the situation. And there's so many times where a situation that you can actually learn from ends up becoming a whole competition of literally who has the biggest argument or who's able to prove someone wrong or get the best, clip on TikTok, for example, which is crazy. And when it comes to also Charlie Kirk, even though I'm not really political at all, I don't agree with all of the views that he says or said, right? Rest in peace. But the only thing that I would say when it comes to him anyways is that I didn't necessarily agree when I saw all over social media, like people literally laughing at him getting murdered, bro, which is, in my opinion, is insane. Like, that's mind games. Like, back then when we saw assassinations happening, whether you agree with a person or you didn't, you weren't, for example, vocal in terms of where you stood in regards to it. At least, like, you paid homage towards their death, number one. And number two, you wouldn't, like, openly just... it's ridiculous. I saw so many memes and people literally, like, laughing, like, oh, yeah, and that's not really good, man. It's not good at all. It's actually quite evil. Very, very evil. If you don't agree with someone, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to, like, laugh at their death, you know what I mean? I'm not telling you to mourn their death either. Even me, I didn't mourn his death, but evil, man. Evil stuff. But anyway, let's get back into the video.
Is the good definition of a bad faith argument. And typically people who have bad faith arguments, and I would say Jehovah's Witnesses have them all the time. Woo! Is that people are not willing to accept new information that may make you change your decision. And that's the whole purpose of debate, is to see who has the best argument. And if somebody has a stronger argument based on fact, then by theory, you should be able to change your vantage point and just, keep growing and developing intellectually. But this is not what happens, especially on the right. You have guys who are now going to colleges and having debates in bad faith. And a good example of this is our guy, Myron Gaines. Now, recently, he was at a college campus and he was debating, in my opinion, a very, 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 very intelligent brother, a guy who stuck to the course. He didn't get into any kind of, ad hominem attacks. He stuck exactly to the code. And it was a pretty good back and forth. But I want you to hear what he had to say.
Let me ask you this then.
Would have happened.
If that racism is so bad, why is it that black people actually did better during the Jim Crow era? They had their own businesses. They were making more money. I'll tell you why, because the nuclear family. So when black people were the most oppressed and had the least rights and the least civil liberties, they actually did better than they do now. So again,
Now, but before obviously I hear what he actually has to say, to be honest, that is the reality of the thing, you know. We had, for example, the Black Wall Street. We had, for example, black families coming together, and especially after, for example, the whole, freedom of slaves, etc. What actually happened was that the black family came together stronger than ever, because who else can you rely on? You need to rely on, the man relies on the lady, and obviously the kids rely on the parents, etc. So that nuclear family was the strongest that we ever saw when it comes to American history anyways. And then obviously after, we had the interception of different things, different policies getting made, etc. And people being incentivized to not be in a nuclear family within, if you were black, that's when we saw a decline. So what he said right there was very, very true. But I'm very curious to see what this guy has to say.
Reconstruction. You're talking about
nothing can keep you back from success besides yourself.
So you're talking about Reconstruction, right?
Which is true, depending on the context. But I lean more towards what this guy is saying. I lean more towards it.
What happened to all those successful businesses and things that were around during Jim Crow? They were destroyed, bro. They were destroyed,
and who destroyed
cousin. Our government or white racists. But that happened. You can't even lie to that. That's history, brother. That's history.
That is history.
Again, choice and accountability.
So Myron is arguing here.
Okay, he lost me there. He lost me there. What do you mean choice and accountability?
That blacks did better under Jim Crow than now. All right. This is one of the arguments that a lot of people on the conservative right use. And it's an argument that I've used before. Okay. But here is the problem with using this argument is that when blacks did better under Jim Crow, they were also married, and people also show that. But what people don't understand is that 1 out of every 3 Black American or African American at this particular time owned a home. Black businesses in the 40s and 50s were even more flourishing than they were in the 60s. Now, there's a documentary here on YouTube called Inside the Negro Middle Class, and this was done in 1968. And in this particular video, you have blacks who acknowledge that the 40s and the 50s were even a stronger time for black businesses and most notably black wealth, right? That the predecessors were doing better. So what happens is this: if I have more businesses in my community, if I have more money in my community, even if I'm under Jim Crow, I have a wealth machine that I can distract from. Now, what the brother is saying is clearly the government stole that away.
Which is true, because when you even look into other cultures and their histories as well, every single minority group that's been, you could say, oppressed throughout history in the Western world anyways, they stuck together, and through sticking together, you're able to obviously go through hardship together. That's the whole point of community, right? But the only thing that makes it different when it comes to black people specifically is that it was actually physically robbed from us. It was literally taken away. And that is the thing that I feel as if though a lot of people don't really take the time out to either consider when they're debating, especially, and other races and other people just generally don't care, So I feel as if though that message needs to kind of be pushed even more, and people need to understand, especially people that are melanated, need to understand the history. So at least if we understand where we're coming from, we understand where we are right now, I understand where we need to get to in the future. And in reality, when you have a strong family, you have strong values, and you have a strong economic system, like, for example, Boyce Watkins talks about, then that's when you're able to basically have a successful community in reality. So, yeah, I was confused with what Myron said at that point. But anyways.
Or at least he will in this argument. Haiti, the community there, he talks about Black Wall Street. So the government dismantled the wealth creation for the black community, all right? So you're talking about how blacks did better under Jim Crow, but you're not talking about how blacks lost their wealth because of the government, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of acknowledging what the guy is saying, Myron throws an insult and says, the government, right? Like making fun or mocking the guy, which you should never do in debate. He sticks to his argument of choice and accountability. This is debating in bad faith. If you're really debating, you should be fair and address his position. You don't want to address his position because if you do, clearly you will lose because you do know that he is correct. There's no way that conservatives can say that blacks did better under Jim Crow than today, but not address the fact that blacks had more businesses, more wealth.
It's facts. Like, you need to call a spade, and I understand that obviously Myron has a message to push, right? And it's all about positioning, and especially with this, social media era, etc. You can never ever be seen as wrong because people use that one time that you're wrong against you for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? People be like, "Oh, this guy owned Myron." That's the clips that you'll be seeing on TikTok. Do you know what I mean? So I understand why he probably stuck to his laurels and started to default to the government, etc. But if he wanted to move the situation and move the debate forward, he should have admitted that, look, like what the guy is saying is correct. And it's very interesting. I don't know, man.
Important getting their business.
I think the more that I react to stuff and the more that I actually take time to see different people's opinions on different things, I'm just like, apart from even I prefer when I was just literally just watching things that I was interested in, watching anime and just going about my life. Because even TikTok, for example, life before I was on TikTok, my days was way more peaceful. But naturally, you have to build a personal brand and things like that. And I can never take that opportunity that we have right now for granted, so yeah.
Destroyed by the government at this time, things like that, all right? If you're going to accept that, you have to also accept that the government did intervene to destroy all of that. If you're not going to accept that, stop using that argument. And this guy, in my honest opinion, got the better of Myron. But wait, there's more.
The 90s, we're just
Choice
a couple, that was a little bit ago. We're still living in the party. Okay, so what you're saying?
Because
so the people in Tulsa, people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they chose for the Klan to come around. They chose for that. Is that what the fuck? You're talking about choice and responsibility, brother.
And I'm saying,
what responsibilities does the government have?
What I'm saying is, in the 60s, when they were actually successful, right? They were oppressed to the highest degree, and they were still successful. So there's no excuse with racism being reeled back to not be successful. That's what I'm saying. All these other things happened. Cool. Nobody cares. People need to pick themselves up from the bootstraps.
Maybe you need to start caring. Maybe people should start caring. Maybe we should have those conversations. Because if we don't take care of what happened and how people were left, like, taken away from their access to wealth, right? If we don't deal with those things, how are we going to move forward?
So again,
literally what I said, like, if you don't understand what's happened in the past, then you don't understand where you are right now, and of course you can't move forward in the future. And funny enough, like, just to double back and just buttress on the point, because the guy said it, like, whenever I am around successful people, and in fact, let me change that. Whenever I'm around successful brothers, right? So people that are black and are successful, these tend to be people that understand their history. They tend to be people that actually take the time out to care about all these things that we now call to be insignificant information. They take the time out to understand and continue to be students. And even if they haven't gone as deep as, for example, what this guy on the right has basically done, they still understand the essence of it. And that way, they always say history repeats itself. If you understand what's happened in the past, then you understand that it's always going to reoccur in the future if you don't actually take the action to stop it right now in the present. Because time in and of itself, right, I don't want to lose one of you guys anyways, but time in and of itself is basically just a borderline illusion. You know what I mean? Like, time is a concept that in reality, all we really have right now is right now, the present, right? So in regards to, for example, what's happened in the past, in regards to what's happened in the future, the reason why things basically continue to occur is because you're not dealing with it right now in the present. And that's the thing I believe that this guy is basically trying to say here on the right. Hopefully I got you guys there. But yeah, man, that's bad practice, man. Like, he shouldn't really do that. But at the same time, you can't really tell what a guy to do when, again, this is his platform. You know, he's inviting people to basically talk against him and debate him. But it is done in bad faith. Like, that is A fact. And also, two things can be right. What Myron said was that ladies chose to marry the state rather than marry like their husbands because they were incentivized to. That's recorded in history. It's a fact, right? So I understand what he means in terms of taking accountability there, but at the same time, you can't dismiss what this guy's saying, because without this, you wouldn't have your argument anyway. So technically speaking, this guy's wrong in order for you to then talk about your argument. But in this case and point, he's wrong.
We're going back to the whole idea of Myron sticking to choice and accountability. Now, let me just say this. Choice and accountability is a part of the Black issue, all right? It's a part of the Black community's issue in America. It's a part of the Pan-African plight with Africans and Blacks in the diaspora and even Africa. Choice and accountability definitely plays a role. Unfortunately, it is not the only role, all right? Now, I say the same thing for what's going on in Pan-Africanism, and I understand it may not be the only thing, but choice and accountability does matter. However, you don't want to go back to the fact that Blacks lost their wealth, all right? Myron goes back to the fact that you can do well without racism and that Blacks need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But the guy says, how can you remove the access to Black wealth and then allow them to move forward? Which
is facts. It's just facts. I thought as if though, like, I agree with what this entire video, just in general. If you don't understand, and this is another thing that I realize when I have conversations with like white people, because again, I'm not against white people as a whole. Like, what is the point? So, like, for example, if I have a conversation with Jimmy, for example, down the road, right? Jimmy has nothing to do with what happened in the past. Maybe his ancestors or someone that is related or whatever did, but I can't take my anger out on Jimmy for something that he didn't actually do. What I find is that other cultures, not only white people, just other cultures in general, are ignorant about other cultures. The same way Black people were ignorant about a lot of other people's cultures as well. Because in reality, human beings inherently were self-centered, were selfish. Do you know what I mean? We only care about what we care about. Do you know what I mean? So it's never going to be a topic of discussion. But you cannot, when talking about wealth and talking about the power that Black people have right now, you can't dismiss the fact that in reality, Black people are starting way behind. You know what I mean? Everyone else, let's say, for example, you got white people literally +5. You got, for example, Asians, like in terms of Oriental, for example, maybe +1 or 2, right? Because, for example, they like not too long ago, I'm pretty sure some of you may or may not know this, but not too long ago, places like, for example, China were going through it. They had a depression kind of season within their history, and they said, you know what, this isn't going to happen again. They did every single thing in their power to get to the top where they are right now. Do you know what I mean? So then you got, for example, I don't know, whatever group you're going to basically say starts at 0, then you got Black people basically at -5 and not -10, depending on the situation. So it's mad. It's mad. And even in that, the thing that gives me hope and the reason why I still push, and it's the reason why I still, venture into other places and still try to do business, etc., is simply because despite all the odds, we still made it. Despite all the odds, you still have Black billionaires. Despite all the odds, you still have Black men that are excellent. Despite all the odds, you still have Black ladies that are doing their thing, right? So you can't dismiss what this guy is saying in terms of like the fact that we're literally robbed of that starting point, which is so important. In fact, when you read books like Outlier and you really study it, majority of the successful people that we look up to came from backgrounds that gave them a starting point, or they gave them like a leg up above everyone else. For example, Bill Gates had access to one of the world's first ever computers. Like, anyone with that type of access is going to beat someone that didn't even know what a computer was until 30 years later. For example, like, there's so many examples I can give you guys anyway, but I'm pretty sure you get the point anyways. But my people, I don't want to take too much of this video. I'm going to leave the link down in the description below. So make sure to actually watch it all the way to the end and support the creator. In saying this as well, make sure to leave your comments down below. I know I said quite a lot of controversial things, so just let me know what you guys think. I'm always open to learning, and getting constructive criticism as well. And most importantly, make sure to subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers as soon as possible. Once we hit 100, I'm literally on the road to 1K straight away. Let's just go. Let's hit the ground running. You feel me? But in saying that, my people, I'll leave you to it, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace.